Rain lashed against the kitchen window, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. Nathan's call had been short, clipped, businesslike. "Just confirming, Arthur," he'd said, his voice tight. "Lily's party is still on for Saturday. Clara wants everything perfect for her little princess." He hadn't bothered to ask how I was, of course. "Yes, Nathan," I'd reply, my own voice flat. "It's on." The phone clicked dead. I stared at the receiver, the plastic cold in my hand. Perfect. He wanted it perfect. After what Clara had said to me yesterday, after the raw, naked greed in her eyes, the word felt like a mockery. The kettle whistled, a shrill shriek that cut through the silence. I poured myself a cup of tea, my hands trembling slightly. The warmth did little to dispel the chill that had settled in my bones. Lily's birthday, my granddaughter's 10th birthday. It should have been a day of joy, of celebration. Instead, it felt like a countdown to what? I wasn't sure. Eviction, humiliation, the final, crushing blow. I walked over to the window, watching the rain cascade down the glass. My house, the house I'd built with my own two hands, brick by brick. The house where I'd raised Clara, where I'd watched her take her first steps, heard her first laughter. The house she now saw as nothing more than an asset, a stepping stone to a more comfortable life. "Grandpa," a small voice called. I turned to see Lily standing in the doorway, her eyes wide and anxious. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I managed a weak smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart," I said, trying to sound reassuring. "Just a bit tired." She hesitated for a moment, then walked over and hugged me tightly. "I heard you talking to Daddy," she whispered into my shirt. He sounded angry. I stroked her hair, trying to soothe her. "It was nothing, Lily," I said. "Just grown-up talk." She pulled back, her eyes searching mine. "Mommy and Daddy are fighting a lot," she confessed, her voice trembling. "They're talking about selling the house." My heart sank. So she'd heard. She understood, even at her young age, the implications of their whispers, the veiled threats. I knelt down so I was at her level. "Lily," I said, my voice soft but firm, "I promise you, everything will be all right." She didn't look convinced. "But what if they make you leave?" she asked, her eyes filling with tears. "Where will you go?" The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Where would I go? I had no other family, no other place to call home. This house was everything to me. It was my sanctuary, my legacy. And they were trying to take it away. I pulled Lily close again, holding her tight. "Don't you worry," I murmured, kissing the top of her head. "Grandpa will figure something out." I had to, for her, for myself, for the memory of my wife, who had poured just as much love and sweat into this house as I had. They wouldn't win. I wouldn't let them. A flicker of resolve ignited within me, a small flame in the darkness. I had been blindsided, wounded, humiliated, but I wasn't defeated. I was a lawyer, a man of logic and strategy. I knew the law, and I would use it. I wouldn't stoop to their level, to their petty greed and deceit. I would fight this battle on my terms with integrity and intelligence. I would protect my home, my granddaughter, and my dignity. I just needed a plan, and I had a feeling I knew where to start. Mrs. Henderson, my next-door neighbor, had been a friend of the family for years. She knew Clara and Nathan well, perhaps even better than I did. She'd hinted at some interesting developments in their lives recently. A new business venture, a sudden influx of cash. Something didn't add up, and I intended to find out what. The rain continued to batter against the windows, but the storm inside me had begun to subside, replaced by a quiet determination. The game was on, and I was ready to play. I stood up, pulling Lily with me. "Come on, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "Let's make some pancakes." I had a phone call to make. The porch swing creaked rhythmically, a counterpoint to the hollow ache in my chest. Lily sat beside me, small for her 10 years, twisting a strand of hair round her finger. The morning sun, usually a welcome sight, felt harsh, exposing the raw wound of betrayal. They said you wouldn't notice," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I placed a hand on her shoulder, trying to offer comfort I didn't feel. "It's all right, Lily. Tell me everything." She took a shaky breath. "They were talking in the kitchen last night, after you went to bed," she began, her eyes welling up. He said this house would be perfect for them once you were gone." She couldn't finish the sentence. I squeezed her shoulder gently. "Go on, sweetheart," Clara said. "She said it wouldn't be long now," Lily continued, her voice cracking. "They talked a boot about getting power of attorney. Nathan said something about you being too old to manage your own affairs." A bitter taste rose in my throat. My own daughter plotting against me. He said they'd sell this place and use the money to buy a bigger house closer to the city. Lily looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. "Grandpa, are they going to make you leave?" I pulled her close, holding her tight. "No, Lily," I said, my voice firm despite the turmoil inside. "They won't." The words felt hollow even to my own ears. How could I make such a promise when I felt so utterly powerless? I, a man who had spent his life navigating the complexities of the law, now faced a legal battle within his own family. The irony wasn't lost on me. "They talked about selling after your birthday," Lily added, a fresh wave of tears washing over her. "My birthday. They planned to celebrate with me, then discard me like an unwanted gift." The swing continued its monotonous creak, a soundtrack to my despair. I looked out at the garden, at the roses I had planted with my late wife, at the oak tree he had watched grow over the decades. This house held a lifetime of memories, of laughter and love, of family gatherings and quiet evenings. And they planned to take it all away. "Grandpa," Lily's voice broke through my thoughts. "What are we going to do?" Her question, so simple yet so profound, struck a chord within me. It wasn't just my fight anymore. It was about protecting Lily, about shielding her from the ugliness of their greed. The despair began to recede, replaced by a quiet resolve. I wouldn't let them win. I wouldn't let them take my home, my memories, my granddaughter's peace. I straightened up, taking a deep breath of the crisp morning air. "We're going to fight back, Lily," I said, a new strength entering my voice. "We're going to fight back, and we're going to win." I didn't have a plan yet, but I knew where to start. Mrs. Henderson, my neighbor, had always been a keen observer of the comings and goings on our street. She might have noticed something, overheard something that could help. I stood up, pulling Lily with me. "Come on," I said, offering her a reassuring smile. "Let's go see if Mrs. Henderson has any cookies." Lily sniffled, wiping her eyes. "Okay, Grandpa." As we walked toward Mrs. Henderson's house, I couldn't shake the image of Clara and Nathan. their faces contorted with avarice. They thought they had me cornered. They thought I was old and frail, easy prey. They had underestimated me. I knew the law, and I knew how to use it. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about justice, about showing them that they couldn't get away with their betrayal. And I had a feeling that their meticulously planned birthday celebration was going to be a lot more memorable than they anticipated. The quiet resolve within me solidified into something harder, sharper. It was the beginning of my plan, the first step on the road to reclaiming what was mine. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across my living room floor. I poured myself a cup of tea, my hands still trembling slightly from Lily's revelation. They were talking about getting a big loan. Grandpa, she'd whispered, her eyes wide with fear. A really big one. I knew what that meant. They needed money, and they saw my house as their solution. My own daughter, Clara, and her husband, Nathan. I paced, trying to piece it all together. Lily's words echoed in my mind. Mommy said something about needing it by your birthday, my birthday. Next week they plan to have the money and presumably my house by then. The audacity was staggering. I went to the window, looking out at Mrs. Henderson's garden. She was out tending her roses, just as she was every afternoon. Mrs. Henderson had lived next door for over 40 years. She knew everyone and everything that happened on this street. Maybe, just maybe, she knew something that could help me. Good afternoon, Mrs. Henderson, I called out. She looked up, her face crinkling into a smile. Arthur, how are you, dear? Doing all right, considering, I reply, trying to sound casual. Lovely roses you have there. Aren't they just? She beamed. Say, Arthur, I saw Clara and Nathan heading to the bank the other day. All dressed up, they were. She chuckled. Must be something important, eh? My heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the peace I needed. Oh, really? I hadn't heard, I said, feigning ignorance. Anything interesting? Well, now I can't say for sure, she said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. But they seem awfully excited. Nathan was practically skipping. Haven't seen him that happy since Clara finally agreed to marry him. Imagine that, I murmured, my mind racing. Excited? A big loan. My birthday, it was all starting to connect. They were planning to use my house as collateral. They must have assumed I'd be none the wiser, probably thinking I was too old to understand their scheme. They underestimated me. I was a lawyer for 40 years. I might be retired, but my mind was still sharp. I thanked Mrs. Henderson and returned inside, the gears in my brain turning. I needed proof, concrete evidence of their plan. Then I'd hit them where it hurt. I pulled out my old legal pads and started writing, outlining every possible scenario, every legal avenue I could pursue. I needed to be airtight. I needed to be ready. The more I thought, the clearer their plan became. They were going to use the birthday party as a cover, a family gathering, everyone together, happy and celebrating. And then, bam, they'd spring the news on me. They'd probably try to paint it as a loving gesture, helping me manage my affairs. They'd talk about how it was for my own good. The hypocrisy made my blood boil. I spent the next few days meticulously building my case. I called in a few favors from old colleagues, quietly gathering information. I needed to know everything about Nathan's finances, Clara's involvement, the terms of the loan, everything. I worked tirelessly, driven by a quiet fury. This wasn't just about the house, it was about principle. It was about family, about loyalty, about respect. They had trampled all over those values, and I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I discovered Nathan had a history of shady business dealings, small-time scams, nothing he'd ever been convicted of, but enough to raise red flags. I also found out that Clara had co-signed the loan application, making her just as culpable. They were in this together, up to their necks. By the time my birthday arrived, I was ready. I had all the evidence I needed, neatly organized and ready to present. I'd even drafted a legal document, a counteroffensive that would protect my house and expose their treachery. I felt a strange sense of calm. The anger had subsided, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. The party was in full swing. Clara and Nathan were all smiles, playing the doting daughter and son-in-law. They had no idea what was coming. They thought they had won. They thought they had me cornered. They were wrong. I watched them, a small, almost imperceptible smile playing on my lips. The gift had been opened, the cake had been cut, and everyone was gathered in the living room. It was time. I cleared my throat, the room falling silent. "I have an announcement," I said, my voice steady and clear. Their smiles faltered. They knew in that instant that something had shifted. The game was about to change, and they were no longer in control. The look on Clara's face, a mixture of confusion and dawning realization, was almost worth all the heartache. Almost. The true satisfaction would come when I revealed the full extent of my plan, the trap I had so carefully laid. Their game was over. Mine was just beginning. Rain lashed against my study window, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. I sat at my desk, the worn leather creaking beneath me, surrounded by stacks of legal documents. Each rustle of paper felt like a whisper of betrayal. "They think they're so clever," I muttered, picking up Clara's birth certificate. I remembered the day she was born, the joy, the hope, and now this. This calculated plan to steal my home, hatched with the eager participation of Nathan. I unfolded a recent property survey, its crisp lines mocking the tangled mess my family had become. "They want a fight, they'll get one," I said, a grim determination settling in my gut. This house, this life, was more than just bricks and mortar. It was my legacy, and I wouldn't let them take it without a fight. I spent the next few hours poring over documents, cross-referencing dates, highlighting clauses, piecing together the puzzle of Nathan's scheme. He'd clearly done his homework, researching property laws, exploiting loopholes. "He thinks he's the only one who understands the law," I murmured, a wry smile playing on my lips. He was about to learn that he was playing against a master. I'd spent my entire career navigating the complexities of the legal system, and I wasn't about to be outmaneuvered by a novice, even if that novice was my own son-in-law. I pulled out an old, leather-bound legal textbook, a relic from my law school days. "Let's see what we can find," I whispered, flipping through the brittle pages. The afternoon wore on, the rain outside intensifying. My study, usually a haven of peace, felt like a war room. Each document, each legal precedent became a weapon in my arsenal. I drafted a new will, ensuring that Lily, my granddaughter, would be protected, that she would inherit what was rightfully hers. "They won't touch a penny," I declared, signing the document with a flourish. Then I began to construct the framework of my counteroffensive, a plan so intricate so airtight that it would leave Nathan and Claire utterly defenseless. A knock on the door broke my concentration. "Mr. Arthur?" "It's Mrs. Henderson from next door." I opened the door to find my neighbor, a kind elderly woman with a perpetually worried expression. "Everything all right, Mrs. Henderson?" I asked. I overheard well. I couldn't help but overhear Clara and Nathan talking in the garden earlier. She stammered, her eyes darting nervously around. "They were discussing your house." My heart sank, but I maintained a calm facade. "Oh," I said, feigning ignorance. "What were they saying?" Mrs. Henderson leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They were talking about getting you to sign it over. They said something about a birthday present, a surprise." Her words confirmed my suspicions, fueling my resolve. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson," I said, my voice tight with controlled anger. "This information is very helpful." She wrung her hands, her face etched with concern. "Oh, Mr. Arthur, I hope I haven't caused any trouble." No, not at all," I reassured her, forcing a smile. "You've been a great help." As she shuffled back to her house, I closed the door, my mind racing. The birthday party, Clara's birthday, was just a week away. They planned to use the occasion, the supposed celebration of family, as the backdrop for their deception. "They picked the wrong battlefield," I muttered, returning to my desk. The pieces of my plan were falling into place. The birthday party, it was the perfect opportunity. I could use their own scheme against them, expose their greed and treachery in front of everyone. The thought sent a shiver of anticipation down my spine. I pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and began to write, sketching out the final details of my plan. I would need witnesses, impartial observers who could attest to the truth. I would need evidence, irrefutable proof of Nathan and Clara's intentions. And I would need to deliver the final blow with precision, with devastating effect. "They want a show," I whispered, a cold smile spreading across my face. "I'll give them a show they'll never forget." I worked late into the night, the rain continuing its relentless assault on the windows. But the storm inside me had begun to subside, replaced by a quiet, steely resolve. I had a plan, and I was ready.